Hey, welcome to Footnotes. Today we've got a special episode where we talk to a mother-daughter duo that own and operate a dump truck company in Lexington, South Carolina. We're talking to Lisa Tyson, who is the owner of the business, and her daughter, Leigh Provost, who's the executive vice president of LA Barrier & Sons. This business is now in its fourth generation of family ownership, and they've been going strong for almost 85 years. We also talk about family and where that intersects with business, and also what are the things that a business needs to be doing to survive that long. All this is next on Footnotes. Well, we're here today with Lisa Tyson and Leigh Provost. Lisa, you are the president of LA Barrier & Sons Incorporated,
Yes.
And you're the executive vice president of LA Barrier & Sons Incorporated. But you guys aren't sons.
No, we're not.
I just had this conversation yesterday with someone.
And you guys are a mother and daughter, and you work together in a multi-generational business. But before we get into kind of those dynamics of the family, why don't we start with just how you got here? Where did LA Barrier come from? How long has it been around?
Well, it's been around since 1935. My husband's grandfather started the business in Wadesboro, North Carolina. And the reason his son, LA Barrier & Son, his son worked for him. But lo and behold, his daughter went to work for him as well. So I guess she never got added to the name, but we've been in business since 1935. And in the 70s, they moved to the West Columbia area here. And I guess not long after that, they moved out off Black Springs Road.
And y'all have you always been in the short haul business? I mean, right now it's dump trucks, but
Yes.
it's always been...
It's always been dump trucks. We followed one particular contractor for many years. We traveled to all the different jobs until they settled here and diversified and moved around with a couple different contractors. So it's just gone on from there.
And so you've been in business, I think we can say this now, almost 100 years.
Yes.
Which generation are you, Leigh?
So I'm the fourth generation. So I didn't really have anything to do with the business until I was about 26 or 27. I grew up at LA Barrier, of course. Right. I was there. The desk I sat at my first day had my name signed in it because I practiced my cursive. When I was in kindergarten, I practiced my cursive inside my dad's desk drawer, and that desk was still there when I came 7 years ago.
Wow.
But I've been with the company 7 years now, my husband as well. So we're truly family, both parents, and then both myself and my husband.
So it sounds like you changed careers.
I did.
To do that. What made you?
So I am a chemical engineer by trade, and I kind of decided when I was in 7th grade, I was going to be a chemical engineer. I don't really know what made me decide that.
Okay.
I don't know that that's the choice I would make now as a 7th grader. But, went to Clemson for engineering, and I worked at Milliken and Spartanburg and planned to be there for 40 years. It was my one-stop shop, and that was
Not
my
a bad
goal.
place to spend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I made a really great decision on that. But then once I was in, the real world a little bit, I recognized the differences in small business and large to the degree of I understood kind of how my parents were able to do things when I was growing up. And then also I'm an only child, so there's no one else really to take over the business. My parents were obviously nearing retirement age in the, next decade at that point. And so I considered maybe this is something I want to do. And so we made a huge career change and transition and moved to Lexington and started working at LA Barrier.
But it sounds like Lisa, and as Leigh mentioned, she's an only child, but it seems like you and your husband, Leigh, had a choice.
Yes, she did.
What was it like when she first chose to forge her own path, but then when she turned around, what was
goodness.
Was that like?
Well, at the time, we just knew she was going to stay in Spartanburg. That we had just come to live with. That was going to be okay. She wasn't far from home. We'd be okay. And then all of a sudden, I didn't get the phone call. Her daddy got the phone call.
On purpose, I can interject here for a second. I needed a non-emotional, thoughtful, I really want you to think about what I'm asking, and I want really good advice, not the emotional, yes, having my child at home with me is the best thing ever. Right. Yes, you should come. I wanted my dad to give me the, hey, I've done this for 40, 50 years now.
Right.
40 years. are you sure? And that's what he did. He said, are you really sure you know what you're asking here? I want you to think about it. I want y'all to process this, think about these certain things. And if y'all are sure, then we'll talk to your mom about this, because we don't want
I didn't know
her to like it was probably a month or two.
Yeah.
Okay.
In between the conversations.
It was at least that long.
Yeah. But we didn't want her to get excited and then us to be like, actually, no, we're not sure and we're not going to do that. Because I didn't want to like crush her hopes and dreams that we were going to move home.
It's hard to unring the bell.
Yes.
You know, if you kind of bring it out, you can't.
Right.
You can't sort of take it back, even if you change your mind. It was kind of, it was out there. But
well, she worked occasionally during the summers in high school and things, helping in the office. And that's when she said, this is not for me. So when we finally got the call, or I finally got the call, I'm like, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe she's actually coming home and going to work for the company.
Yeah. And at the time, we thought I would come work for LA Barrier and Grant was just going to find an engineering job in Columbia. That would not have been difficult.
Sure.
Because not that we didn't want him to work at LA Barrier, we just didn't think there probably wasn't space. We didn't have a position. We didn't want to create additional overhead in a position for that. And he can just keep being an engineer. And then this was right as you know, our ownership transitioned right before we came, and we actually had a void of lots of people in our office. And we were like, actually, it's good if both of you come. So we both came on at the same time. Yep. But we definitely a huge career change. And we also had started with the anticipation of this maybe happening. Grant and I had started MBA school. So we knew we're prepared to start working in a different type of career, a different type of company, doing different things than we have before. So I think they knew this is a potential transition piece for us as we're getting this additional education to also support moving into the business as well.
Sure.
So I guess that all the discussions happen over a year or two ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
Knowing
So there's a period where you guys were talking, you still had your jobs in the upstate and as a family. So what was it like, when y'all decided, okay, you have this parent-child bond, of course, but now you're going to add a business partner role in everybody's life. What's that like to add a new type of relationship?
Yeah.
It wasn't hard for me at all, John, because years ago I had worked in my father's business.
Okay.
So I had a little taste of what it was going to be like. And I'm thinking, well, we get along so well, it's not going to be any problem. Well, it hasn't been a problem. Because I'd worked for Joel for years, working right next beside my husband and then my mother-in-law. And I thought, well, we're just going to add our daughter and our son-in-law. This is going to be great. Well, I was right. Best decision ever made. We always laugh and say, this is our retirement plan. Well, we hadn't quite got that retirement down yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
Right.
So for us, it wasn't really a big hurdle for me. I considered it, but it wasn't a big issue for me because I had grown up with both my parents working together. So the whole family dynamic, not directly under my parents exactly, but them working together had modeled my whole life and shaped my life to where that part didn't really occur to me as being something to worry about. Certainly being a married couple that had established our lives elsewhere versus the child growing up in the business. That was different and we knew we would have to transition that. But adding that has been, to me, it's been a difference. And, previous bosses at, Milliken, for example, had many wonderful bosses, but they were never my family. So there's always that trust that you don't quite have that you have with your parents.
Right.
Understandable.
And so sometimes it's easier and more difficult, but most of the time it's easier to go to them with a problem or something because I know I can be open and get good feedback. Sometimes it's more difficult because it's this is a challenging situation and it's I don't want to go to my dad and say, hey, this is difficult that this is happening, or there's a business issue with our relationship that we have to kind of cross that hurdle, similar to both of us.
Right.
Those don't happen often. But I feel that was stuff, that type of relationship, the challenges kind of came later to where I didn't really consider them being an issue when we first started.
Do you think that when you and Grant sort of started on your own in a different place, that actually helped you be able to come back and kind of hit, whereas opposed if you just, graduated Clemson and then
Yes.
immediately came back
yeah.
to Lexington?
Absolutely. Because we had established our relationship, our dynamics somewhat, pre-kids, which obviously changed things, but our dynamics
A little bit.
before. And so we had like a good foundation of our relationship and our marriage because we were married for almost 4 years when we came here. So yes, that actually, I think that really was a benefit because we weren't in the same town as either of our parents when we
Right.
first got married. So we were able to establish that to where when we started in the business and being near my parents, it wasn't like we don't know how to create our marriage without one of our families being right there. So certainly that was a huge benefit for us.
So shifting gears a little bit, I mean, what's it like? You guys are in a very competitive industry. I mean, transportation is just competitive. It just is. Margins can be small, and there are other players in the area. And you guys, you don't service nationwide. You have a somewhat smaller service area.
Right.
So how in the world does a company hang on for, let's just call it 85 years?
John, we've got wonderful customers, repeat customers. And in the industry we're in, as far as road work, it's just so much out there to do, and there's not enough trucks to go around.
Why are there not enough trucks? I mean,
They're not real cheap. And just getting started, I mean, the overhead you have to have and the capital to put up, it's not for the faint of heart to get in, go into debt like we have been. We purchase anywhere from 10 to 12 trucks a year, just having to change out. But we have been very successful. And I attribute that a lot to our employees. They've been wonderful.
Yeah. I think it's a couple of things that have helped us hold on for that long. The family aspect of it, I think, really helped in the beginning. I think it really helps now in a different way.
okay.
Because we had initially the small business. I mean, technically we're still a small business, but not like we used to be.
Right.
The small business feel to where our customers knew we were reliable because we had a couple of trucks. They knew who to talk to because there weren't that many people to talk to. Like if I have an issue, I go to this person who's the owner and the driver and only has 3 other employees, in the beginning. And so we've been able to keep that infused in our business and our culture throughout the last 85 years to where, going to the top for an employee or a customer, if we have an issue, we need to take it to the top. Lisa's in the office.
Yeah.
Lisa's available. Lisa will give you your phone number or me. It's not difficult. So that helps our employee culture and our customers because they know who we are.
Right.
And it sounds like how to get in touch with you.
Exactly.
And
It's not like we're inaccessible.
And it's like, almost like they're friends, even though they're business associates, they're friends of ours as well.
Right.
That's just how we've always had our business.
Yeah. And then to me, another thing that our family has been very important to us, and I think is very important to Joel, my dad, is the quality of our service and the reliability. We're gonna, just like Lisa said, we get new trucks every year. Our trucks are new, they're well maintained, they look nice on the road. Like you know which truck is ours because it's shiny and red and clean. Like hopefully, sometimes we can't control it when it's been on a job site. But they also know we're gonna do what we say. And if we're not, we're gonna let you know. So the quality and the reliability has always been, a key driver of our business. And even at, 74 trucks now, we're still able to do that. And so that's why we have the repeat customers and the people that want to work with us because they know LA Barrier can supply a large number of trucks and they're gonna do what they say as best we can. Now, the last couple of years as business has exploded, it can be challenging when everybody needs all of your trucks. So now we don't commit to more than we can do. We're disappointing everyone, but we're not disappointing them by lying to them. We're telling them up front, I can't get you what you need, but this is what I can do, and that's what we accomplish.
Well, I think that's interesting because I think sometimes in business people think, well, if I make someone upset, then I'm going to lose business. But I think 85 years tells you you'll lose business for other reasons. But
Right.
you usually don't lose business because you told the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we've always prided ourselves in that.
Yeah.
If we can't do it, we're going to tell you.
And for many months over the last several years, especially, the summer, early fall timeframes for the last 3 years, there's been a lot of telling the truth that nobody likes to a lot of customers.
What does that sound like in your world? I mean, a lot of people listen to this, and so they're probably not transportation people. What is that?
So
what is that
it's
like?
our dispatch team, unfortunately, is the ones that really has to do this. And
Okay.
it's very challenging because they're like, everybody's mad at me. Like, I'm making no one happy. But somebody will call in, like, they need to get their job done tomorrow, what they want to get done. They need 15 trucks. Well, so does 5 other people that called in the last hour. And we don't commit. It's not like first come, first serve. We kind of look at the day and then we assess. Well, we don't have that many trucks. So we might say, okay, everybody needs 15, so we're going to scale it back. You get 10, you get 10, you get 10, you get 5. Just depending on what the workload is.
And what we committed to.
Exactly. And also, like,
contracts.
we might have a contract with someone, and so we know, like, we told you we would do this, so
Sure.
you get extra priority. And then we tell them, we can't do 15 trucks tomorrow, but you can have 10. And then there might be some hemming and hawing and like, we really need 11 or we really need 12, and we'll do what we can. But it's that daily, like, this is what we can commit to you, and that's what we do. That's what we put on the schedule. And assuming a truck's not broken down and all the drivers come in the next day, that's what they get. And every day it's the same thing. The problem is those people that they need to get their job done too, and they really need 15 trucks. And then they're like, well, you're putting us out. We need more. I'm like, well, we can only do what we can do.
Right. We can only do so much.
Right. So it can really wear on our dispatch team when that's happening every day, over and over for weeks on end. And then we'll finally get a rain day and everybody's like, whew, a 1 day break.
Catch up in the shop and everything else.
Yeah.
Right. For both of you, I mean, how has the business changed? I mean, certainly it's changed over 85 years, but even say in the last decade, I mean, what are I think that's also something out there that people sort of look at a business like that and say, well, you're just hauling stuff. I mean, you're still hauling things, but you guys as insiders know those inside things. I mean, how is that business changing in ways that sort of a person outside the business wouldn't notice?
Yeah.
Well, we've grown exponentially since Leigh and them have been there. When y'all came, we had 50,
Maybe 50 trucks.
maybe 50 trucks, and we're up to 74 now, and that's been 6 years.
7, yeah.
So it's
7
almost
years.
a 50% increase in fleet.
We've had to take on so much more, so we need trucks. That has been a huge change for us as far as, keeping all these trucks up. Had to hire more for the shop, more drivers, a lot more in debt. I mean, it's been very different for us, but it's been good. I mean, we've had no issues.
What do you see as some of the things you're talking about with drivers and mechanics and these sort of skilled positions? How has that changed over time? Are they easier to find, harder to find?
Well, at first it was harder, but then we've had they're just shown up. We did a few Indeed.
And that's not just because of them showing up.
No.
We've done some things.
We've done a few things. We've added some, as Leigh and them brought new things from the corporate world, and it's changed very beneficial for our employees.
So we've, little things like we've added extra benefits. A big change that we made, it's almost been 3 years now, we added a dedicated driver supervisor.
Oh, yes.
Who also is our hiring manager. So all of our drivers, of which there are 70 plus now, have a person they go to. They have a manager that they know well, and he knows them well. And that has been a drastic change because we have a person that can really focus on the drivers, and they have a person to come to when they need to complain or when they have a question or whatever it is. And then also, as far as him doing the hiring, he's able to process applications really quickly. Yeah. We've always had a decent influx of applications, but to have someone turn them over very quickly has helped us a lot.
That has really changed.
And then the benefits part of it has helped. But I mentioned earlier, we've always had that family culture, and going to the top is not difficult. And even though we have 95 employees now, we're trying to keep that infused in our business and still have the little bit of small feel that we can. We're not creating all these rules for our drivers that corporate companies have to have them. It's not that they're a bad thing. You have to, especially when you're large. But we get to pick and choose. What are we creating rules about? Like, we have basic, like you have to wear your seatbelt. You can't use your cell phone. Those are against the law, but also we have those rules. But we're not saying like you get a 10-minute lunch break, a 10-minute bathroom break. If you stop for more than 15 minutes, we're going to yell at you on the radio. Like, we're not doing all of that stuff.
We're not nitpicking.
Right. And so our drivers are more willing to stay and maybe bring their friend that needs a job or something like that.
Yeah, because probably good drivers probably know other good drivers.
Oh, yes. We've gotten a lot of leads
that has helped.
Yeah.
That has helped us get drivers. Now, we'll say like the experience level we're getting of drivers and like the age is a lot less. We're getting many more younger drivers and mostly a lot less experienced.
Is that necessarily a negative?
Sometimes, it is nice when you can put a driver in a seat who's worked for a dump truck company before and you train them for a couple of days and you know where you're going and you know what to do.
Right.
And versus a driver who might have a CDL, but he's never sat in a dump truck in his life, which can be challenging. So yes, it's positive and negative because it's harder to train them, but then also you might not have to get rid of maybe some bad habits that they might have come up with. So it's kind of positive and negative.
Well, the technology for a younger person seems to be easier as well.
Right.
We have tablets and things like that in our trucks.
Yeah.
They can use those a whole lot better than us old fogies.
Is that a fairly recent?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's actually becoming more of a requirement for a lot of our customers. And then we're also trying to add an electronic dispatching system right now. And we know it's going to be a big hurdle for a lot of our drivers. But for some of them, it's going to be like, well, okay, you need me to do something I know how to do already. It's really easy, point, click, do whatever. So in that regard, like I know we have a lot of new drivers, or younger, I should say, that part will be, it's really nice to have them because it'll be a lot easier to implement those types of processes.
Well, and something you said earlier about, your customers were requiring certain things. What aspect does that, certainly you need customers to call you and hire you and put trucks on the road. But in terms of that deeper relationship with customers where you're making investments, it sounds like, in your fleet because of their needs.
Right.
What are those relationships like, and how do you balance running your business and maintaining profitability with the customer pull?
Yeah, so that has been something that I've struggled with understanding because I have always been like, no, we're going to make decisions for our business because of us, not because our customer needs extra trucks or whatever. Luckily, we have other people that work in our business that can help balance my opinion out, like my dad and our salespeople who are like, no, they need more trucks. Like, you don't understand what it's like to have some, just like our dispatchers, to have somebody mad at you all the time. But a lot of those relationships have been built over the last 50 years via Joel. Many of them transitioned to our sales team now, which most of them have been with us for 5 to 10 years. But we do a lot of especially before big projects, like sitting down with our bigger customers and understanding what are your needs going to be on this project for 3 years. And then we don't do that with everyone. We can't. And most of our customers can't give us that kind of forecast.
Right.
I'm talking like the big interstate projects, like the Crossroads that's going to last 8 years kind of situation. Right. But they sit down with us and we have lots of conversations about these are going to be our estimated needs for this year. It'll be, peaks and valleys. And then we can kind of understand, okay, if we commit to this project, we're going to need 30 trucks on average for 6 months of the 2024. What does that need to do for our fleet? Do we need to add some more? Do we need to plan on maybe not helping these customers? And we do our best to look at that. But a lot of those relationships have been built for decades.
True.
There still are a lot of smaller construction companies around that we have worked for 20, 30, 40 years.
And they're still our customers.
Right. It's nice to have those because we do have that camaraderie and openness where they can sit down with us and be like, hey, we really want you to help us, and this is what we would require to do that. It doesn't always happen like that, but a lot of the time.
It's interesting, just kind of changing gears again, and I'm very interested in your answers to this, because I think this is where other people that are listening to this may be in a family business.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be a transportation business, but they've got that extra layer of relationship now with it, that's business partner in addition to, father, son, or mother, daughter, aunt, uncle, whatever. But knowing what y'all know right now and knowing that there's more to come, what advice do you give people that are in business with family members?
You want to go first?
You go.
So I would say,
I want to hear this.
Keep doing it. Like, it's worth it. Now, I don't have siblings, so I get the beauty of it just being me and my parents. The next generation, which we hope to have in the business, there's going to be at least 3 of them. They might not all, might be none of them work there. So let me answer this again in 25
like your parents,
years.
you may give them that choices there,
exactly.
but they could return or come back.
But to me, like, keep doing it. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. The freedom that you get of being in a family business is phenomenal. To me, the relationship building, like, I get to have a different type of relationship with my parents than if I didn't work here. And that has blessed my life. It can be very challenging at times and frustrating. And, because sometimes, like, if your boss is your boss and not your mom or your dad, like, you can just be mad at them and then not feel bad. But I'm like, well, I have to reconcile that.
Yeah, that separation is not, you don't have really the luxury of that kind of like, I'm leaving and I'll be back on Monday.
Exactly.
It's 24/7.
Exactly. So, yes, that is a challenge, and it can be really tricky, because then I'm like, my parents can, upset me in a different way than a boss can, which doesn't feel good, but it's so worth it to just keep going, to keep doing it, to really be involved and dig in. And the other part, like, our business, it blesses our whole family. I'm not working for a corporate company or some different owner. And, like, I might make a really good paycheck, but at the end of the day, like, we get to make decisions together that bless our entire family, that are going to bless me and my husband and my kids and future generations to come. So to me, all of that just makes it worth it. So my phrase would be, keep going, keep doing it.
I would have to say the same thing as far as keep going. At first I only was working with my husband and my mother-in-law. And then as we grew, wow, here comes our daughter and our son-in-law. It has probably been the best job, give or take, I think I could have ever imagined. Simply from being able to work with my child. My husband, it's been great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. It's just fun because, like, we're all working for the same goal.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, the decisions we make, like, technically my mom is the owner and it's her money, like, I remember that. And I try to, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't.
Yeah, remember that.
Yeah, like, I don't own it yet. But still, like, we're making choices for our family.
Yeah.
And we get to be the ones that decide, like, some of our customers, if we had added like 20 trucks, they would be so happy. Well, that is not a good decision for our family right now.
Not right now.
And maybe it is, like, okay, over 5 years, it was a good decision to grow by 20 trucks. And maybe it would be a good decision in 5 years. I don't know. We just have to assess then. But we don't have to make decisions for other shareholders or our customers or whoever if it doesn't align with our family.
And our values. I mean, we seem to always get around and have the same values.
Right.
Thank goodness.
Obviously part of that's because they raised me. So clearly we have similar values.
There's a little transfer there, but to the point, I mean, I think it's interesting that, you were raised in those values, you were raised in the company, but you made a conscious decision to go down a path that was not LA barrier for a time, and not a short time. It's not like, oh, I left for 6 months and then I came back. I mean, you said 7 years.
Yeah.
So that's plenty of time to get into a career, especially at a large company like Milliken, to where you probably had a career pathway. And there were probably some people that were disappointed that you and Grant, were no longer at the company because they had plans.
Right.
There's now some people that are very happy that you're back because they also have plans. And, I think that's just an interesting dynamic there. And I think what both of you said about, just keep going. I mean, in our business, we see other family businesses, and I think most of them would say that, but not all of them would say that. And to have something, the statistics of businesses going into a fourth generation, I mean, are less than 1% of family-held businesses even make it to that point. It's under 5% that go to 3.
Right.
And it's way less than half go from 1 to 2. I mean, so you guys have done something that, I mean, less than 1% of the businesses in our country even are able to do. And so that is something. And then just the longevity and I'll use the word, the heritage.
Right.
That's been strung along across the generations is really impressive. And, well, if people are looking, if they think, hey, this sounds like a great place to work, or we want to hire these guys, or even if they want to talk to you, they own a family business and they want to come. How can people find you guys? What's the best way to do that?
So, and maybe y'all can share this in our podcast so people don't have to jot down our email. So to me, email is easiest for me because then I can see it and respond.
Okay. So maybe go through the company website first.
Company website.
LAberry.com.
Yep.
Okay.
LAberry.com is our website. And then email is always the best way, probably to reach both of us.
Yes.
Especially with the upcoming being out of work for a couple weeks with a new child. But we're always excited to talk to either small businesses, family businesses, whatever. Yes. Every small business and every family business is very different. But I always appreciate talking to people who are in it that are different from my own perspective. Like, hey, I want to take what you know too. I want to learn
different perspective.
Right, but I like to share the information as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all for sitting down and doing this.
Thank you for having us,
taking
John.
time out of your day to y'all run a busy company. I mean, during the day it is busy.
We do.
Oh yeah.
And keeping 74 trucks on the road doesn't happen by accident.
No,
it does not.
We have some wonderful employees.
Well, thank y'all for sitting down with us and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you
very
so much.